I like
Yeah.
Well, I did this.
It's been out there.
I didn't, yeah, so that's part of it. Yeah.
This guy's, you've never seen him. I know.
And then.
Leah and Shannon, are you guys ready?
So ready.
Okay. They're ready. Staff is ready, so I will call this is Wednesday, February 21st, meeting to order. Leah, will you please call the roll?
Sarah, here, Reed,
Here.
Randy,
Here.
Dusty,
Here.
and Lisa and Tiffany Todd are excused absent. And Nancy. Nancy is present.
What is she, chopped liver? Okay. First item on the agenda is approval of the February 7th meeting minutes. Do we have any motion to approve those minutes?
I'll move to approve the February 7th meeting minutes.
Thank you, Sarah. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Nancy. Are there any questions, corrections, changes? Hearing none, Leah, will you call the roll for the vote on the minutes?
Randy,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Dusty,
Yes.
Reed.
Yes. Excellent. Moving on to public hearings. All right, so I'm going to open a public hearing. I'm just gonna read this, okay? Today is Wednesday, February 21st, and the time is 5:03 p.m. I'm now opening the public hearing for the lot line adjustment and the final PUD plan application. Village at Mount Crested Butte, submitted by North Village Associates, represented by Rocket Farnell. We are holding the public hearing in person and via Zoom. The following members of the Mount Crested Butte Planning Commission are in attendance, all except Tiffany and Lisa. We are also joined by TJ, Community Planning Strategies, Community Development Director Neil Starkbaum, Nick Klein, Town Attorney, and let's see. Nancy, do you have any comments at this time?
Yes, I do. I am a member of the Mount Crested Water and Sand Board of Directors, and in light of the district's recent position findings on aspects of this project, and in consultation with town council, I am recusing myself from this public hearing.
Okay, thank you. The reason for the public hearing, we are here to receive public comment regarding a lot line adjustment and final PUD plan application for the village at Mount Crested Butte. Proof of publication, both hearing notices were published in the Crested Butte News, January 26, 2024, and posted in the required locations. The applicants certified mail public notices to required properties by the Friday, February 2nd deadline, and provided copies of the certified mail receipts. Written comment. No written comments were included in the packet. The following written comments have been received since the packet was sent out. Bill News, Dana Delaney, Jeffrey Delaney, Catherine Norgard, and Nicole Blazer. So we got left off my script. Now's the time where we do planning commission. Commissioner disclosures. You guys know enough about that script you have. I'm gonna start because, I've had ex parte emails from Nicole Blazer, Catherine Norgard, Andrew Errol, Dana Delaney, Jeffrey Delaney, and Issa Michael. And they have been forwarded to the town and are included in the public comment. Does anybody else have disclosures?
I think I got some of the same emails.
And so did I.
No.
Okay, wow.
I did not respond to any.
Use your email. Okay, so much for disclosures. Staff project introduction, TJ, this is coming to you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Let's see if we can get technology to work. All right, I think we're rocking and rolling. Never happens on the first try, so we'll see what happens from here. Good evening, I'm TJ Duluback with Community Planning Strategies, contracted planner for the town, specifically working on this project, so. Thank you, Chair, for that kind of intro. As you mentioned, we have two applications that we're talking about at the same time. And then at the end of it, after we close the public comment period, there'll be two motions to be made. So two applications, one conversation, two actions. I'm going to try and go through this in the interest of time pretty quickly, hit some of the high points in my presentation. Feel free to stop me anywhere along the line if you have some clarification questions. And then after I'm through it, the applicant has a presentation that they'd like to do, and then we can have some discussion. Okay.
Yeah, why don't we let you get through with yours and then
Okay.
we'll ask questions. if we have.
Sounds good. I'm here to serve at your pleasure. So first, a quick summary of the request. The first and foremost, the current PUD as out there is North Village PUD, and it's changing names. So now it's the Village at the Village at Mount Crested Butte. There's a campus that's always been out there for Rocky Mountain Biological Campus, some year-round trails, some civic and public uses. So it's a very much a mixed-use project as a whole, hotel site, residential and mixed-use development tracts. And then a couple of things just to bring to your attention, those bottom three really. One, there's a lot line adjustment with this, and that's simply because the current PUD or subdivision out there has 19 lots or tracts, and we're rearranging them to be 15. There's a land swap that we'll talk about a little bit, as well as the expansion of water and sewer utilities, which is a big part of this project as well. People, there we go. So just kind of a summary. I have a couple of tables in here. These are in the staff report. I won't go through each of them in detail, but in summary, the density and floor areas, there's a total of 139,000 square feet of commercial use in the project, broken down into uses in that table. And then a total of somewhere between 342 and 382 units, and that just depends on the number of accommodation units versus the number of dwelling units. And in the PUD, it kind of spells out how that could play out. And then a number of dormitory units that are tied to the campus. The land uses, so this table, the left column is the tracts, the number of tracts, the number of the tract. The zone is the use of it. And then I have the maximum units, residential units, square footage, and commercial square footage in there too. So that's the table. And in general, there's open space tracts, 3 of them where no development, no commercial or residential would be allowed. There's some low density residential tract. One of them, there's as mentioned, the Rocky Mountain Biological Lab is on a tract, campus. Medium density residential takes up 4 tracts. public is a couple, and then 4 of them are mixed use, and as I said, the breakdown is in that table. The roadway plan has not changed from the preliminary plan. But the dimensions are still the same, so you might remember, again, I didn't break it down quite as well as it was in the preliminary. But they are looking for smaller roads to fit that development pattern, and so the dimensional standards are there with a pavement width and shoulders, and reducing some of that. The utility plan, this is the plan as it's hard to see up there, but the water line loops back to Gothic on the south side in this proposed, as well as a number of utility easements that run through the property to serve each of the tracts, not necessarily in the rights of way. So it's within the rights of way, as well as extensive easements beyond. Mount Crested Butte Water and Sand District has not approved or accepted the utility plans as of yet. They're still in conversations with that, and therefore we have, we'll get to that. Condition number 1, as recommended by staff, is intended to address the district's review of the utility plan, the water and sewer utilities. The land swap is for 2 areas here marked in red. The area on the top side of that, the screen is going to be transferred from the applicant to the town, and the one on the south is going to be transferred to from the town. Sorry, the other way around. The one on the south bottom is going to be transferred to the town. The one on the north is going to be transferred to the applicant. And those square footage areas are right there in the on the slide, and the idea at the moment is that land swap would happen simultaneously with the recording of the lot line adjustment. We still need to work out the exact logistics of that, but the idea is that we can make it all happen simultaneously. The community housing plan that's requested. So this is tied to an annexation agreement that talks about the requirements of it. There are 17 units that are outstanding that need to be provided prior to the first CO being issued. And the applicant can probably talk a little bit about how that could play out. But the proposal in the PUD is that the community housing plan, the housing units will be met and calculated at each tract when they come in. So it's not being allocated, if you will, at the moment. Through the PUD and what they said, what it's calculated out right now, based on the projected build out, it would be about 88.37 units. And that's in addition to the 17. But those will come in as the tracts are developed. We also received 3 requests from the applicant. It was like kind of after we did the full review and after we were talking through some of the final things. The first being an extension of the recordation deadline. And that's a condition in there, the fact that code currently requires both the final plan documents as well as the lot line adjustment plat to be recorded within essentially 90 days of approval. Some of the conditions make that difficult. So the request is for 12 months. So that's in a staff recommendation, and that is at the discretion of town council. But again, we want to put that out there for your all consideration. The second one is the vested rights. And this one is solely on the shoulders of the town council. So we want to put it out there as a request, but we really don't have much discussion. That has its own process that it would follow and would not be dictated by what we're talking about tonight. And then the last is the definition of dormitory unit being amended. The big change there is that to clarify that the shared space of a dormitory, there's a minimum requirement, and that's only for the shared space, not the square footage of the bedrooms. And it'd be reduced from previously 220 square feet to 130 square feet. So, and I suspect that applicant might speak a little bit more about that, but those are the 3 requests. So with that, these I'm going to There's a lot of words on these slides. I can assure you, these are in your packet but essentially this is the 10 approval criteria that you all need to find in order to approve the lot line adjustment. So this is first the lot line adjustment. Based on staff's review, we do recommend that the planning commission, recommend approval of the lot line adjustment for the first amended plat of the North Village subdivision, finding that the criteria for the lot line adjustment to Town Code Section 18331E have been met with the recommended conditions 1 through 4 as detailed in the staff report. Do you want me to read through those in the record, or is it, if they're in the packet? Yeah, so I won't read through them. They are in the staff report, and I do have them here if we need to pull them up to reconsider them, but that's what the staff recommendation is on the lot line adjustment. And as far as the PUD or the final plan, similarly, there's a list of criteria here, A through H, that you all need to find in order to approve or recommend approval of the final plan documents. And similarly, based on staff's review of the documents, staff is recommending that the planning commission recommend approval of the final plan for Village at Mount Crested, Butte, finding that the criteria for rezoning in code section 2133 have been met with conditions 1 through 11 as detailed in the staff report. And again, I have lots of text on slides. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all might have, or turn that over to the applicant.
I have one quick one in the recommendation, and I don't know whether it was for the lot line or for the actual substance, but at one point, I think it's supposed to be wildflower lane.
Yes,
But it was listed as wildfire lane.
that is correct. That was 100% me. There is no, we had that conversation, and then it should have been changed in the amended.
Okay, I just read the first one, so, all right. Does anybody else have any questions for TJ?
TJ, I was curious, the land swap, how was the parcel to be transferred to the town determined?
I honestly don't know. That was done previously. I don't know if the applicant wants to address it on the process that led to those parcels. I don't know.
The question, how it would be transacted? or-
No, how was that determined, the piece that's gonna be transferred? I mean, what are the,
So, grade mostly?
You need to be on the speaker.
What hasn't been.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
right, so in terms of a proposed swap, the parcel closest to the village is on our design. What made sense to not have that pelican beak kind of pokes into nice developable area, mostly based on grade. And then when we looked at the parcel F, there's a very nice contiguous piece right there that has a shallower grade. It kind of has a shallow grade and then drops off, but probably half of that 77,000 is, is a similar grade to the rest of parcel F, which is kind of a gentle, crowned slope right there. So, as opposed to any of the other pieces are, very steep. And that's also where the road, so, the previous right of way, like, if you think of the neck of this pelican, yeah, that big swoop was where the previous right of way went out, from the previous lots, so we were already going to vacate that right of way back to the town, and then there'd be this like vacant piece in between, so.
yeah,
Okay,
okay,
let's
Okay.
keep our questions for TJ right now,
sure.
and we'll come back to the applicant.
So TJ doesn't know anymore, so.
I know more, just not on the land swap.
Sarah, do you have anything for TJ?
I do, on the staff report, should we get to proposed motion, I just see motion for final plan, not for lot line adjustment.
Yeah, we
So
just combined them, but they would be done as separate motions.
I get that, but usually there's something helpful to be
I-
read.
I gotcha.
There's
Okay.
2 staff reports.
Well, I'm looking at the updated one from the 18th.
Yeah, so that's the plan, the final plan. There's another staff report for the lot line adjustment.
And they look identical.
Yeah.
That would have been helpful to make it a little bit more obvious.
Okay, well, I'll look for that while we continue.
Reed, anything? Virginia?
No, I'm saving.
I have anything for you.
If it helps, that one was dated the 15th.
Say that again.
It was dated the 15th. That one is, we came with the original too.
Page 12 of your packet has the lot line adjustment motion.
Well, I'm just opening attachments, so.
I have a hard copy if you need it.
If you're doing the split screen view, it's 5.1. The second document.
I think I found it in public notice. Okay.
Okay. Anybody else got anything for TJ? All right. Next item is the applicant comments. So if you all have a short presentation, that would be
So brief. And they're very brief. Don't give them things.
steady.
I'll just see if it goes. Okay. Um, Okay. So we haven't seen you all in a while, correct? So I thought we'd just kind of do this very brief recap, very brief. Village of Mount Crested Butte, yes, we changed the name. So our front slide purposefully says the Alvarez family. I think as a reminder for maybe some new people that are in the public. For you all, we've kind of described this opportunity for the town and for the community as a little bit of a unicorn. Most times what I put on that front page is a developer's name and someone who's really interested in maximizing the highest and best financial use of a property. And again, I think the opportunity here really that has come forward with the Alvarez family is a lot of willingness to work with you guys on the right size, right fit, and what makes the most sense for the community. And I think as I go through this really briefly, we'll see how that has played out in our preliminary plan. So just a quick reminder what this project was all about, and I'll read this really briefly. To create a community nexus for Mount Crested Butte focused on building community and a resilient socioeconomic system using a diverse program of residential, commercial, and hospitality uses. The design and program of North Village fosters a deep connection to the landscape enhanced through recreational educational and intellectual opportunities. As we kind of go through, right, and we we're all a part of this story, in the last several years. This slide shows how long it's been. So May of 2021, we submitted our very first application for completeness review. I think it officially went in July of 2021. We had 8 meetings with you all through the course of the preliminary plan. Very, very constructive meetings that got us to where we are today. I think 3 or 4 meetings with council as well. So that was through 2022 and 2023. And now we're here with our final plan and talking about our final approval as we can move forward from this point. So really the North Village, much of the intent of this project was to take that vision statement and think about how it could show up on the land and on the property. So from the beginning, as the designer and the planner, we were given the direction that there was a previous plan contemplated of 1,800 units. And that was a non-starter for our client and for the Alvarez family. So even from the very beginning, we were looking at how to reduce the density of this property and some of the previously approved plans. Maintaining view sheds, that's even codified now in our PUD guide, how to maintain the view sheds from Gothic Road. Thinking about the gathering spaces, the kind of dynamic active projects, this idea of mixing uses. And we worked through with you guys how to specify that in a way that made everybody really comfortable, but still leave some of the flexibility to mix uses in different tracks where it was most appropriate. Supporting Rumble's vision. So obviously a big component of this project is to bring a Rumble campus down into town, one that they can operate year round, and be a critical component of this, connecting to the landscape and the community and the educational opportunities, et cetera. Providing the extensive trail system, so in and around, whether it's our commuter trail, whether it's our trail around the reservoir easement, and whether it's all the connections in and outside of the project, that's an important component as well. And then really providing the opportunity for publicly driven benefits. So we have land that can be designated for civic uses. We're strongly encouraging our partners how we can make more community housing happen in this project, even than what's specified, et cetera. Thinking about the Snodgrass trailhead, how we've designated the visitor center and additional parking for that trailhead, et cetera. So really bringing those community uses that way back in sketch plan, before I was even a part of this, were part of these community conversations of what would be great to see on this property. So our final PUD, I won't go through these, we listed it. Concentrating density in our low areas, making sure we've got the Rumble campus connected, all the community uses in the village, et cetera. TJ went through this. This is pretty much where we left off on preliminary plan. So we're excited to bring that back and say, hey, this makes a ton of sense. Conditions, we want to kind of officially say we went through the conditions with staff, both on the lot line adjustment as well as the final PUD, and are comfortable with all of those conditions that might move forward from the planning commission. And we can talk through any additional ones that we have this evening. I can speak to either the extension on the preliminary plat or the vesting rights if you'd like me to. We did want to focus on the dormitory definition. It is pretty much the only change from the preliminary plan that you all saw. So we kind of want to talk through a couple of things, backing up a little bit to the purpose of dormitory. Why is that even a consideration at this point? Why is it a definition in your code right now? Why is it something the community is really thinking about? So the whole idea of the housing standards is to try to ensure that housing is part of new development and how to create a mix of those housings, that types of housing. So the Gunnison Valley Housing Assessment, so that was a valley-wide housing assessment, talked about both rental units and the idea of seasonal units. What we call that is the housing continuum. So the idea that to be able to create seasonal housing and put people who are actual seasonal workers into that type of housing, importantly, then frees up the rental housing. So as you have, 140 units that might be necessary as rental housing, and even that at this point is probably outdated from when that Valley Housing Assessment came out, to be able to incentivize seasonal housing, again, puts those people in those units. So as we really dug in a little bit more to the actual square footage that we had previously, where that came from, what that would equate to, there was a big disconnect. So to really incentivize dormitory units, you have to kind of pull apart, like, what are the challenges for that type of product? And then how can you actually incentivize it? So we have a couple of notes up here, just thinking about what those challenges are. And honestly, this, for our project, may relate to how Rumble would take advantage of doing dormitory units. But this is something that we'd recommend you consider as a change to your, overall definition in code. So this is, again, this idea of incentivizing seasonal regardless. So you can really kind of only count on this revenue for a portion of the year. It obviously tends to equate to fairly low income workers. So even the revenue that you're generating tends to be lower. Subsidy programs, whether it's low income tax credit housing, things like that, it's not really available. That kind of gap financing is not available for seasonal housing. So all of these kind of pile up, as challenges. And so to incentivize it, you really have to right size what that unit is. You have to really think about how you're going to fit that into what you consider an efficient unit. So a couple of things, building codes tend to small size, right? They can be anywhere as low as 80 square feet for a single occupant, up to 120 when you kind of aggregate that space. And so we went through and, we pulled some of these for staff as we said, hey, this is kind of what we need to come back and ask for, because it turns out the math isn't really working. By the time you might do 4 bedrooms at what we had previously, which was 260 square feet plus their bedroom, it was almost like 360 square feet per person. It basically, you might as well just build a unit, a year-round unit. You was not what you consider efficiency units. So we pulled some other examples. We kind of went through the history of how we got to the definition, et cetera. And so there's a few up here to look at, and these are anywhere from, Aspen Merle Ranch is probably creeping up on like almost 50 years old at this point, and operates extremely well, has for years. They're considering redevelopment only because it's reaching its lifespan. There's a new one, the Basalt Tiny Home, that 134 square feet. And that is almost a dorm style, but they're living in a tiny home. Aspen Skiing Company has done some of the most extensive interview process of their employees to say, how does this feel? Can you live in this? Would you live in even smaller? They're like, absolutely. You give me the price point of $400 or less, I will share that 400 square feet with 3 of us for sure. So we wanted to kind of go through and make sure we're not just making this up. We're using supported examples across our Resort West of seasonal housing that has worked. So the preliminary plan definition, there were 2 things that were really challenging in that. One, it basically was not defining that the way we read it, the 220 was in addition to its bedroom. So that's where you're kind of saying, oh, it was 320 square feet per person. So the current kind of definition we put to staff and they supported was the one you see below. So it essentially says you have a bedroom, and that bedroom can be sized either right at a minimum per building code, or it could be larger, but that your shared space, so everything from the bathroom, kitchen, living room, etc., would be the 130 per bedroom. So that would be a designated space. And we can kind of go through what that might look like, example wise, if you have questions. That's pretty much it. That's all we have. So I'm happy to answer questions as well.
Okay, Kevin. Actually, we'll come back to you for questions.
Okay.
We'll let public ask some questions.
That is fabulous. And I will stop sharing. Thanks.
Okay, now is the time for public comment. Anyone wishing to comment pro or con may step up to the podium, raise your hand on Zoom, state your name, comment, and sign the sign-in sheet for the record. Time limit of 3 minutes, and we will be timing that. If you have already submitted a letter, please do not restate what's in your letter, as it's already part of the public record and considered by the planning commission. You may say that you submitted a letter and add something that is not, but please do not repeat what others have said. You may say that you agree with prior comments. Who would like to speak?
And
Okay.
this is for the lot one adjustment.
This is for either one,
Oh, okay.
running consecutive.
Okay, Kathy Hope, 18 Castle Road, 30-year resident. Thank you, planners, for all the work you did, because this is complicated. And I'm just gonna touch on my main concerns. Regarding the February 14th memo from Water and Sand, additional info is required from the developer as of October 10th, 2023 to complete assessment and has not been received. And in my opinion, until Water and Sand gets everything approved and until they get the stuff back to them, I feel that this project should be on hold. The main sanitary sewer that's in Gothic Road does not have the capacity supposedly for this new development, and I read into that they would have to pay. I'm not sure who's gonna pay, but I don't think I should have to pay. If the project has to dig up Gothic for some reason, how will the entire town deal with the impact, the residents, traffic disruptions, etc.? In my opinion, the developer should have to pay because they are the ones making the profit. Town people do not benefit. Regarding the land swap, it seems to me, after reading the plat and the topo stuff, that the town is getting lower land, wetlands, and a ravine, and the developer is getting a nicer piece of property. I don't think it's a fair swap, but I'm not a professional at reading topos. I think that the piece F should have a little bit flatter piece, so maybe there's something where piece F can get some more. Regarding the 20-year vested rights, I'm confused. Does that mean that if they don't start, they can still use the same plans 20 years from now? In the past, the town was usually given a 3-year extension, remember Ridge. So I feel that it's totally out of line. The background, by the state statute, the vested rights for projects such as this would only be 3 years. I don't think we should make an exception.
1 minute, Juanita. You got 1 minute,
What?
1 minute left.
Okay, yeah, fast. Regarding, the trail plan, it seems to have changed. When I originally, the original meetings, there seemed to be more, but I could be wrong because I might not be reading it right. And I just think it's really important to understand the 20-year thing because I'm really confused about that. So that's it.
Thank you, Ken. Who would like to go next? Yeah, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Bill Moose and my wife Kim and I are full-time residents here in Mount Crested, Butte. We greatly appreciate all of the efforts made by the Alvarez family to try and put together something for the community. But we think that there are a couple of serious defects that prevent the property from, or the application from meeting the requirements of the relevant section of the town code for approval. And there are two in particular. The first is the town code requires that the traffic impacts, the traffic effects be considered and addressed. In this case, the record is clear that it will be adding over 4,700 new car trips a day, and that the community has expressed concern about that consistently from the very beginning of the process. The only condition that currently exists to approval related to that is requiring the developer to fund a couple turn lanes onto and off of Gothic, and that is patently inadequate to address the impact of 4,700 new car trips a day. The second part of the statute or of the code that has not been addressed adequately is the requirement that you take into account the dangers or the impact on the dangers posed by the project to the community in terms of things such as wildfires and floods. The record shows that a big part of the area of Mount Crested Butte, including areas near where we live, are high fire risk areas. What the record doesn't show is how people can safely evacuate in the event of a fire or a flood. And Gothic Road, only way in and out of town, is clogged up by these extra 4,700 plus trips a day that are sitting on there. In addition, the record does not address at all the impact of the risk of fire or flood posed by the carbon footprint created by the project's 4,700 vehicle trips a day and 300 plus dwellings that are fired by natural gas. Now, there are two conditions that you could attach to approval that would rectify these issues. The first would be to condition approval upon connection of the project to Mountaineer Square and the town via gondola. That would go and meaningfully address the traffic effects. It would address the climate impacts associated with this. And most importantly, it would create a separate vehicle, a second vehicle for getting out of the valley in the event of a calamity. The second condition that should be imposed is that the project be conducted using best practices to make the project carbon neutral, including not using natural gas. So for those reasons, we encourage you to either approve the project with the conditions indicated above, defer ruling on the project until these areas can be adequately considered, or reject the project outright. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Anybody else?
Anybody on Zoom?
Thanks, Shannon. I can't forget they're up here.
Yeah, I don't see any chat.
Okay.
Anybody on Zoom?
Now it's the opposite. All right, go on. We speak. All right, now it's the opportunity for the applicant to address the concerns brought up by Kathy and Joe.
We'll wait to see if you guys have any questions.
Okay.
Thanks.
We're moving to planning commission questions and answers with the applicant. Do any of the planning commissioners have any questions for the applicant? All right.
You go first.
Oh, ladies first.
As Heather said, it's been a while since we've seen this, so I had a lot of refreshing to do. Really the main thing that needs to be, I think, cleaned up is in the design guidelines. Part of them were dated June 22, part of them were dated April 2007. And about halfway through, DRB gets converted to DRC, and it's referred to as a DRB in the PUD guide. So I would want to see that document cleaned up, and that's pretty much the main thing I have.
Okay. Read.
I'd like to ask about the roadway and the request to reduce the road width. I think my recollection is that the two accesses idea, which was the original plan, was basically changed because it was too difficult for you to accomplish without, it was too expensive, was the real reason, and the size of the retaining walls. I think in exchange for that, we kind of had come to an agreement about a boulevard that would be wide enough to allow for emergency access and to allow for egress for residents and visitors during an emergency. I am very concerned about reducing the road width to 24 feet. The way I read the Crested Butte Fire Code is that any roadway with fire hydrants is required to be 26 foot wide, exclusive of shoulders or valley pans. And any roads that serve a building over 30 feet in height must be an aerial apparatus road, which again means 26 foot wide lanes. So I see that change as an impediment to what we had previously agreed upon. And I'd like to know why you want to reduce the road.
Sure, absolutely. So subsequent to being with planning commission, and I think you all gave a certain condition as we went into council to do this final review with staff and fire district. So we took every single one of our road sections and we went through that with fire. And they actually came back and said they did not want the boulevard approach. So they wanted full width pavement where they can do whatever they need to do. They saw that as, you know, a worse situation to have the boulevard because you couldn't cross people over, et cetera. So if anything were to happen on the 2-lane road now, you can still move people back and forth across, et cetera, versus with the boulevard, it operated a little bit too much like a 1-lane road. And they said, nope, we don't want that. In the village where the buildings are greater than the 30 feet, we have a full 26 width aerial apparatus, clear lanes, et cetera. And that all came in too with removing any on-street parking, et cetera. So now there is just streets in the core and all the aerial. So you'll see the cross sections differ, and that relaxation of just the paved cross section is only on the main road. And we still have our commuter path. So that is basically being designed as an additional vehicular lane. So they can access that lane in multiple places and either put some of their, you know, equipment on it, et cetera. Move vehicles if they had to onto that path. So all of this was every single cross section gone through with fire. And they essentially gave us these cross sections. The overall reduction for the road in was a conversation with fire and council about anywhere we can we reduce the paved width? And they were comfortable with the cross sections that were developed in the style.
As there's no letter to such. And
We
the indication that I have is that fire has not reviewed this final plan.
So we do have a letter as such. I cannot say whether it was one of your exhibits. So we do have the letter as such when we went through council. So I can dig it up while we're sitting here.
So why can we not maintain a 26-foot lane the entire length of the road?
Again, you can. We wanted to find some version of a middle ground where we could reduce the paving if the fire district was still comfortable with it, and they were, so we did. I mean, you can pave everything if you'd like. It's cool too. It's not, I mean, for us, there are a lot of examples of getting down to that. Our traffic speeds are minimal, right? So 26 for everywhere where we don't have to have aerial equipment. It's a big cross section, just paving plus shoulders. So we wanted to find a middle ground, and like I said.
So it's purely a cost saving measure, not a life saving measure.
I mean, for me, and it's aesthetic more than anything. I don't think the cost of the extra, 3 feet on either side or 2 feet on either side is, just gonna make or break this project, that's for sure. So if you wanna pave more and put that as a condition, we will not fall on our sword. I feel like we found a nice middle ground as we moved on from here. Up to you guys.
I also want to know about, I'm trying to figure out where this section was on the schematic. Page C3.3, the road has a 7% grade. Can you show me where that is in the project exactly?
Holy cow, I mean, not right here, but
Okay.
I can pull up the engineering.
I would like
plans.
to know where the 7% grade is and how many yards it extends.
Can do.
I noticed it talks about, in the guide, about ground solar displays. Did we not decide we did not want ground solar in Mount Crested Butte?
It seems like it.
So I think that's contradictory to other rulings that we have made.
There's lots of things in the design guidelines that we're talking about.
Okay. When we talk about, installation of utility infrastructures, I assume that includes fire hydrants. So that's in phase one.
Yes.
The other kind of question, concern I had, I pulled up again with everybody else, it's been a long time going through this. But at one point in time, we were talking about the developable area, with still having a 50-foot buffer to wetlands, et cetera, and what the density would be units per acre, and all of that discussion was going back to, we don't want another pitchfork. I was trying to glean it from the latest application. It doesn't have exact wetlands areas numbers, but I'm wondering about tract 11. That's 5.99 acres, 84 units, so that would be 14 units per acre. Pitchfork is 13 units per acre, so this would be a greater density than Pitchfork. Can you tell me what exactly that is?
Which track?
11.
Well, so significantly different than Pitchfork, track 11 allows multifamily housing, so stacked flat housing. So, Pitchfork primarily has townhouse and single family. I believe that you're, trying to leave lot space and everything else. So this is stacking units that would be a totally different density. And we were staying more.
But that's not the hotel tract, correct?
That is not a hotel tract. No, the hotel tract is 13. But that's one of the village tracts. So all of the village tracts allow that multifamily density. And we were matching that much closer to like your business district mixed use density, not Pitchfork.
I kind of thought that was gonna be your answer, but want to make sure. I think that's all I have to write down, so I find that, go ahead.
Randy, do you have anything?
I'd like to go back to the land swap. I guess what I'm trying to get at is, has it been determined what beneficial uses that piece for the town has?
I mean,
Well,
we have
whether-
offered more land for less land and got a thumbs up from this planning commission and got a thumbs up from council. I think I can't answer that because I don't know what parcel F's beneficial uses are. But there's a very developable area contiguous to the existing parcel F that this would essentially connect to. And I can show you the grades if you'd like.
No,
There's not
I guess,
wetlands except way down in the ravine. Probably a third of it is kind of that slope off into the ravine. But 2/3 of it is very developable area. Grades similar to your existing conway.
Anything else? No.
So as I go through, the community housing definition. So it's packet page 217 or 31 of the PUD guide. It needs an addition of a rental opportunity there. In my opinion.
217.
Page 217 of the packet.
This one?
So what page in the PUD guide?
31. They may paginate differently on different devices, I have no idea, but.
Yeah.
Things PDFs, I have no idea.
So this is this is our definitions, not the.
Yeah. No,
Community housing,
that's it.
I mean,
I'll be-
it's restricted for occupancy. So these are, most of these definitions are pulled from your code, but I can make a note of that and check it. And, again, if it's different than your code, I guess I'd also love to have staff weigh in on that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, and I didn't go check it with code, but it seems to preclude rentals, which I don't think we have to do.
Yeah, that's fine.
The way I read it, but I can be swayed in other directions. I think we had discussions on the design review board back in preliminary plan that one of the members of the design review board should be a Colorado licensed architect, and somehow Colorado licensed got dropped from them.
Okay.
I would ask, let's see. I would ask staff how they feel about the level of involvement of planning commission and staff in the programming of the design reviews. You can find that their little graphic on page 340 of the packet, or page 381. I think it's in there a couple of times, but I would like some response to that, because it seems like while their approach for design review might be adequate for single family homes, there are only a handful of single family projects in there, and most of these are townhomes and multiplexes and that kind of thing, in which case typically staff and planning commission do sketch plan, sometimes, pre-application conference sometimes, but in their proposal, we would not see it until after their design review board had already approved it. So that just seems to be kind of farther down the road than we're used to seeing stuff. What are staff's thoughts on it?
So
Do you have
this is really hard and sometimes a little unfair on some of the current staff. So Todd and I actually worked through, how some of it occurs right now, what that process might look like. And remember, if someone is doing subdivision, they're still gonna come through a full subdivision process. So that's where the pre-application, all those pieces would come into play. If they're doing any subdividing at all, of a parcel, they do have to do that. So yeah, unfortunately, it's hard. Time might be the one that can speak when you're talking to staff, but we did
You
try
talk
to work
staff?
on that.
I am,
Yeah.
I do remember working with Heather and talking about this 3 years ago, but I have not seen the new document or taken time to read any of it, so I don't think I have anything to add to that. Sorry.
And for what it's worth, if I may, I compared it to what was discussed at preliminary plan. And this, I thought, was that, so,
Yeah, it was questioned there too.
okay,
So.
gotcha.
But,
So,
okay, all right.
there you go.
As to piggyback off what Sarah had to say, a lot of the design guidelines are dated 2007, and other than updating the name from the North Village to the Village, they talk about transects and roads that don't exist and alleys and lots of stuff that doesn't really apply to what you've applied for.
Yeah, okay.
And so, I mean, in all fairness, I was really disappointed that the design guidelines were not updated to the actual application.
And Dusty, if I can add, I mean, having gotten this packet just a few days ago, I have not had to read the design guidelines and some of the PUD guide.
That's a lot, it's a lot.
And we could, I mean, that, it doesn't sound, they should be dated June 2022. June 2022, and we can flip through those tonight if you like. There's a lot of different versions, so there may be an older version that was attached to the packet.
Okay, that's, I guess that's a possibility, although it does say final in red on.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, so I mean, we could flip through those just so we're familiar
Well,
with how we're approaching
I
those, except.
really don't want to spend a public hearing reading documents necessarily, but, that was my list. So I think we do need a letter from the fire district. And kind of like to know your opinion on ground solar at this point. Because I thought we agreed that that was gonna be none of that.
Yeah, I can.
We also talked about,
flip through.
some verbiage about no swimming pools, except maybe in the hotel site. But I don't know if that
There are no swimming pools.
got in the PUD act or not. Yeah, so the design guidelines start off as draft dated 2022, and then on page 16, they go to final draft dated April 4th, 2007.
Yeah, that sounds like an old version.
Maybe
We
a
based the
paste
new-
error, I'm not sure.
Yeah, exactly. We based the new ones on the old the old 2007 guidelines. That is correct, but there should be all updated dates in there.
Okay. And back to comments on during the public hearing. I didn't see any reference to natural gas coming into the site. Is that still correct, or did I just not see it, or?
We have natural gas.
Okay.
Or sorry, yes, we have the final.
Okay,
plans
oh,
still
I-
have natural gas. The final direction from council was we leave it up to you. So the utility plans will show natural gas.
okay.
Again, unless conditioned differently. If you were.
Yeah, well, we had that discussion in
Yeah.
one area, and
Exactly. So
yeah, okay,
if there's a condition that either comes out of this recommendation or council, we're happy to look at that condition.
okay,
So right now, freestanding solar infrastructure is conditional use only. And that we didn't necessarily change that from.
on any side, or,
point. I think most of the tracks have, religious facilities, wireless telecommunications, freestanding solar, and temporary structures as conditional use. And that didn't change throughout it, but, we'll
okay.
be happy to take that on. Building mounted only.
Do you have anything else? Do you have-
No.
So I have the road plans here. If we want to look through the road plans for where we have 7% gradients. Would you like to do that?
Sure. Yeah, are you online?
Will be. in-
Or can you give us a page number?
I pulled it up from my sheet set because I can't find it. I don't know what it is in.
Here, we'll jump back on Zoom.
Can you give us a page? That's the
So
packet.
this is,
That's the packet.
yep, so this is from the packet, the roadway plan,
Yeah,
sheet. So 2 of 7, so 3 of 7, let's see here, and then,
And, yep, so you can go to the profiles. So you're probably just gonna have to.
so here's, and I don't know where this is, maybe Heather, you can help me on that.
Yeah, which page are you on?
This is C32. Road 1 profile.
Is there a number page?
This is,
Well, it's
there is.
the exhibit H if
It's-
you're on the agenda.
So C32 is, so the entry road comes in. And goes past the visitor center, and then just as you're coming up on Rumble. So basically just past Rumble, we have, that area that you see, yep, just to the left. So Rumble is at the top of this page. Track 5, track 4, those are both townhouse tracks. That is the steepest section we have. So we go down into that kind of low area and then back up to the knob that is the village. So there's a 7% into it, kind of a 7% out of that, back up to the village main road. Everything coming into the property is 4.5 or 4. All the way around the curve with Rumble is about the same, even less than 4. And then it's almost flat, the whole turnaround main road loop on the village.
So if you were coming down from Rumble around that corner, going down a 7% grade.
Past the corners, is where it straightens
Yeah,
out. Yep.
Correct,
Yep,
well, that's where
just-
you're gonna start sliding right there. How wide is the road there?
That is the narrower cross section. 22 feet.
I think that has to be a minor road there, especially in that area. That's where you're gonna have people fish going downhill.
Or uphill.
Or, yeah,
TJ, I just emailed you the fire department letter of compliance, you and Neil, so I pulled it up here, so you have it.
Yeah, I have it.
So along that line, if you've got, what are they calling it, aerial apparatus? That needs 26 feet. Does it need 26 feet to get to its location?
No, that's only to drop the aerial outriggers.
Gotcha, okay.
my question would be, you know, if this is what the fire code reads, you know, would the town be setting itself up for a liability by not adhering to the same code? By allowing a narrow road?
Fair question.
But if the fire department's signing off on it,
Yeah, I don't think that that's too much of an issue if first off, the fire department signed off on it, and so long as it's not in violation or contradictory to any Mount Crested Butte code requirement.
That's Nicholas Klein, the town's attorney.
Okay, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, chime in, please identify yourself, 'cause otherwise you're gone.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
You have that letter? Do you want to pull up that letter?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're not gonna sit down, we're not gonna read it here
Correct.
in the meeting.
If I may just add a little bit of context to it.
Okay,
So I do have the letter. It is dated December 13th, 2022. So it is from the preliminary.
It's not from this plan.
Correct.
There you
In
have it.
talking with
The fire department has not seen this plan,
or they're not written.
or they've not written a letter.
And if I may, and I had a conversation with Rick. And he does have concerns mostly around the utilities, mostly around the hydrant locations. So his review and everything will be part of the utility review. And through that, so that is,
I'm just
yep, nope,
a little bit bugged that I was told that, oh yeah, they signed off on it, and seems that they haven't.
You asked about the road cross sections, and they have, and then we have their recent email that says, here's the final, we've heard the final plans. And we have their current email that says, great, here are my comments on the fire hydrants. I promise you, I'm not trying to misrepresent you.
We went back and forth with them and also town public works about those road sections. We had it originally designated, as we talked about, with the boulevard situation, which was requested of us originally. And after meeting with both of those entities, they came back with this request to modify to this road cross-section application. And that's the plan and the roadway system that was reviewed and accepted by them at that point and pursuant to that approval letter. Rick did subsequently want to look at the full utility plan when it was complete for locations of hydrants, and that's in process now.
So what, I mean, you guys can in anything you want. It's the board. We've gone through the roads a lot of times. We're happy to look at whatever you would like to see.
So does anybody from the public have any questions about what has been discussed so far?
I do.
No, no, come on, come up to the podium, please, and tell us your name and all that fun stuff. Thank you.
I'm Dana Delaney, part-timer in Crested Butte, and retired teacher, grandmother, and co-founder of Gunnison Valley Climate Crisis Coalition. I know there has been some conversation about wanting this project to be electrified entirely. You know, natural gas, AKA methane, is notorious for leaking in the pipes for decades everywhere. And it's a major climate gas contributor. And we are just hoping that this will be looked at. There have been buildings in this valley that have been 100% electrified successfully with heat pumps and other types of equipment. And my wish would be that for the future of this valley, this wonderful thing that you're building, which will serve our community in so many ways, could also serve our children's future as far as turning the corner more entirely onto this kind of building.
Excuse me, this is sounding an awful lot like your letter.
Oh, no, I don't think so, but I'm glad you read it. I just was waiting all this time. I apologize if I am overstepping.
We would like for you to comment if you have any comments
Yeah.
on the discussion that we have had and the questions we've had with the applicant.
Yeah, I was just surprised that electrification doesn't seem to be in consideration. That's it.
Every building will have electricity, I'll guarantee you that.
But the natural gas is
It's a
not
possibility.
electrification.
It's being proposed as a possibility.
Okay, good. Good, thank you.
Okay,
you so
thank
much.
you. Additional questions from planning commissioners?
Well, I would, I mean, back to one of Kathy Hoag's questions about this utility, the sewer, the water and sewer infrastructure that needs to be done. I believe, their consultant's letter did say it's not Crested Butte's position that Crested Butte's water and sand's position that development has to pay some way. So I presume that means the developer would be paying for the infrastructure.
I asked her the question.
TBD. So they still have to put out an RFP for the changes to the Gothic Road line. They're a long way off from knowing what that solution looks like. And where they go from there on cost. So that is to be determined. I'm assuming some of the background has been communicated. Water and Sanitation District made it clear that they are comfortable with us moving forward with the final PUD. Review and approval of the drawings, and that's actually tied back to the preliminary, recordation of the final plat. So the reason we're looking for that extension is to get through this process. And then we have to finalize all of the designs with Water and Sanitation, and we have to go through the state review process for our lift station. So what we're doing is we wouldn't record our final plat with all the final easements for all the utilities and everything else. So that's that kind of extended period of time. We went through this appeal process with council. Can we move forward? And Water and Sand has made it very clear through that appeal process, and council said the same. You may move forward with the final plan process.
Randy, you have any other questions?
Just kind of further on that discussion about natural gas. Dusty, you're interpreting this as it's being proposed by the developer as a possibility.
We asked them at preliminary plan to consider that based on the use of commercial restaurants and other commercial uses primarily, but yes.
And also that means, no natural gas fireplaces, so we'll be putting particular, even though they have to file code, I mean, we'll have wood burning fireplaces, so there's trade-offs.
But that's the limit of my knowledge of this.
Yeah.
If you have questions for Heather about that, I think that is appropriate, but
No, I don't have any other questions.
Darren,
Well, I just, I do have a question on a potential condition on a recommendation for approval, but I'll go, and so I do want to get it out in its forum. But I will also say that I'm not comfortable going to a motion on this tonight because of the issues with the design guidelines and the fact that we have not had time to review 400 pages of PUD and design guidelines. But
fair enough.
my question, and it's probably for TJ, one of the recommended conditions is the Crested Fire Protection District review and approve all construction documents and plans. That's required anyway. So why are we specifically conditioning that on top of what's already part of our code?
So one of the reasons that we were at appeals is that there's discrepancy between the conditions at preliminary and what the code says. And so, that's one of them. So we wanted to carry that through as well, similar to because the fire district is, in addition to reviewing the roads and cross sections, will be reviewing and working with the, in tandem with the water sand district to do fire calcs, flows, and location of hydrants. So we wanted to make sure, again, it may seem like, overly cautious, but we want to be clear that, hey, these are things that obviously have been unclear in the past. We want to be absolutely clear that before something else happens, we need to have written approval from both the sand district, water and sand district, and the fire district. That would be the intent of that condition.
Fair enough.
Belt and suspenders.
Yeah.
Don't drop your throws.
Reed, do you have any other questions? Yeah.
Not at this time.
I only have one other question, and that is, this winter, the Mountain Express has been experimenting with the dial-a ride. And have you guys had any conversations with them since they've done that?
No, our last conversations were around their design criteria for the pull-offs and the bus stops and where exactly they wanted those.
Okay.
And then which of those makes sense to go into phase one. And they described it as also they're looking at kind of transitioning their fleet, I think, to some natural gas and some other different buses. So they gave us their sort of forward-thinking criteria for those.
When was,
areas, but
do you remember? when
not the
this
dial-a
conversation
ride. I mean, presumably we would go back and say, the dial-a ride should still hit our stops.
Oh, yeah, no, I would agree with you. I just wanted to know if you had that conversation and if their design criteria were changing. If I were them, I wouldn't want to commit to that at this point
Right.
either.
More to their bus, not
Right.
specific to their.
Right, so, but you have, that's where the bus stops came from.
Yes.
Gotcha,
Exactly.
okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, unless there are other questions from the planning commission for the applicant, I would move that we continue this public hearing to the next available date, whatever date. Do we know what date that might
That
be?
would be March 6th.
March 6th. Does that fit within your schedule as well.
Yeah, yes, I'll make it work. Besides the design guidelines, which sounds like you need the most current version, are there conditions that you guys would maybe like to pinpoint as, hey, these are the ones we're considering adding? I mean, something that then if you're considering adding those, we can respond to those maybe a little more specifically, work with staff on what they might look like.
Fair question, Heather.
Great. Thanks.
Sarah?
I don't know about conditions. I think that the PUD guide and the design guidelines need to clarify ground solar, your community housing definition, provision for rental.
Yeah.
Color licensed architects, the whole design review process, making sure that aligns in some of the more complex tracks. And then, the fire department is probably more of a condition than a bidding document.
It's Nick Klein again. If I may jump in, I took a look at that community housing piece, and I don't think it is restricting the ability to rent the premises at all. I see that it speaks to ensuring that the units meet size and for sale price requirements, but I think that's just referring to when a unit is sold, and at the end of the day, the unit is still restricted for occupancy by an eligible person or persons. And generally, when these deed restrictions are drafted, an eligible person can be an owner or a tenant so long as they meet X, Y, and Z criteria. And I don't think that that definition precludes renting at all.
So Nick, if at some point in the future, the criteria changes from ownership, between ownership and rental. In other words, you know, a renter only has to be here for 2 months and an owner has to be here for a year or something like that. You don't think that needs to be differentiated within the definition?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question. I don't think it, once it's in the deed restriction, the operation of the deed restriction doesn't change absent further amendment from the town. And the town would be implementing deed restrictions that are in line with the community housing chapter that's on the books now, or that's on the books in the future, whatever's in existence when the deed restriction is recorded.
But the definition we're talking about is community housing, not deed restriction.
Yes, but those would be deed restricted community housing units.
The definition does not preclude being able to rent the unit. It does require the units to be deed restricted, and the deed restriction would rule those particular units or lots. And that deed restriction could allow for rentals, for ownership and whatnot. So to your concern, I don't think the definition prevents rentals from happening.
I would agree with you if the definition did not specifically call out for sale units.
Nick, I'll allow you, Nick and I were having a conversation back and forth on that, and I'll allow him to elaborate on that more.
I just I think the for sale is simply discussing the restriction that is placed on the sale to ensure that it remains affordable at the first point of sale and subsequent points of sale. But I think if it was truly meant for only owners, I think the definition would say shall mean units restricted for occupancy by eligible owners. But since it says occupancy by eligible person or persons, it lends itself to anyone that meets the eligibility requirements to get into to be able
At the end of the
to.
day, if you want further clarification, we can put it in there, but we're just saying we don't think it's necessary.
Well, if we're
That's
not in alignment in this room, what's gonna happen in 10 years when we're not in this room and this is discussed? So I think it could be simple enough as adding a word.
Add rental.
That's fine from our standpoint.
I might add, there's a section in the community housing guidelines.
Just the definition.
Well, it gives some language that allows or discusses realms.
Right, but we always
That's
talk about
beneficial.
PUD guides being the zoning, so. Yeah, I think we need to be clear and,
Just talking about the benefit of the language in the.
that's, I think the other thing we need to, and maybe we haven't answered the question yet, but I think we need to talk about if we're okay with the redefinition of dorm unit. As well as the vesting, even though that's gonna be the town council.
Yeah.
Staff report, ask for our opinions on that.
And I'd like to circle back on fire really quickly. Should you want to do that before we jump to?
Go for fire.
Okay, go for fire. So we've kind of been put in this position before, just to be really clear on what you're looking for. So they have reviewed the final plan and basically, we don't have it on their letterhead. They essentially said, great, we still have concerns about where the hydrants are gonna be located. We would review your final utility plans for that. And that's why it's also a condition of approval. What would you like from the fire department? So we're very clear on what we're asking them for.
Well, I think I mean, there seems to be somewhat of a disconnect between yourselves and the fire department on what has been approved as preliminary versus final. Any letter has to, from the fire district, that's going to approve your final plan, needs to state this is approving the final plan and, basically have language in it that illustrates that they're looking at the right plan, because there have been multiple plans.
And specific to road cross sections is what
Yes,
you're
specific
mostly.
to road
Okay.
widths, cross sections. You know. I feel strongly that we should be adhering to the CBFPD guidelines for the roads. I think given the amount of daily traffic that this project is gonna generate, the fact that we have essentially allowed it to be a one-way in, one-way out road now. I think it would be short-sighted and detrimental to life safety to design a substandard road. Obviously, I feel strongly about that.
And is this is this a shared straw poll consensus?
I respect Reed's opinion on this, but if I had something from the fire department saying they're okay with it, I can probably be okay with it.
I'm kind of there with Sarah. My comfort level lands in Rick's lap.
That's fine, but it needs to be very specific that he's looking at the correct plan.
Right.
I agree.
If we remember right, I mean, it was them that suggested the boulevard.
Oh, trust me, we've redesigned this road like 4 times, so.
So, you know, I mean, we seem to be
You're
shooting
preaching
at
to
a
the
moving
choir.
target here.
I mean, yes. We have that, but I think that they can provide that. Okay, great, thank you. I wanted to kind of put a little bit. finer.
So, yeah, the definition of.
Warm tour. Yes, please.
Staff's okay with it, I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it, I think somebody read the initial code differently than I read it and added an extra 100 square feet, but 220 square feet plus the bedroom also seems excessive, especially if you're looking at, you know, a 4 or 6 bedroom unit. And yeah, I'm fine with, what's 134, 130 square feet. Plus the 100 square feet of ish of the bedroom, 80. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Okay. What's the other one? Oh,
The extension of the recordation deadline, which
Mhm.
makes sense.
I think that makes sense, but I think there needs to be a deadline. And the 12 months, I think, is. I'm not doing it, so I don't know whether it's adequate or not.
And then the requested vested rights is a town council decision, but the staff report is asking if we have an opinion on
Do you?
it. 20 years does seem like a long time, but this is a very complex project. So, I don't know if meeting in the middle with possible extensions is a better option than about 20 years, but
I would agree with you, and the town and historically has been very generous with, doing 3-year and 5-year extensions on bigger projects. This is not any bigger really than Prospect, which was extended numerous times. For your thoughts?
I think 20 years is beyond the realm of reality. It's gonna be a different world in 5 years. So I think that's, asking a bit much.
I would go along with those recommendations.
Okay. Yeah, seem to be on the same page here.
20 seems a little excessive, is kind of the sentiment.
Shorter term with the opportunity to extend as at the council's request. Permission, better.
so I would have a request to, if we move to continue this to March 6th, that we get an updated design guideline document as soon as possible and not
3 days before.
the planning commission packet deadline.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a procedural question on that. How would that work then? Because usually it has to go in with the packet and, has that normal process. Are we allowed to publish and distribute that ahead of time? I totally agree with you, 400 pages is a bit much to digest over a weekend.
As soon as you could get it to us, we'd circulate it to the planning commission.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be with the published package.
Well, it will be, once you update it, but that packet would not go out and be published until the week before the hearing, but they could certainly review it.
They can see it ahead of time. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
PUD guide, these changes are minimal. I mean, do you need anything else on the PUD guide at this point?
Why don't you share with us your list?
Ground solar, you want to eliminate it at this point and not keep it as conditional as it was in the preliminary package? That's what I heard. Yay.
Are you looking for if that's none?
Yeah, yes.
Think so. Struggle.
I thought that's what we had agreed to.
Okay. Adding some version of a rental language to the community housing definition. You would work with staff on that. And that's all I have in the PD.
Yeah, right, that's a sign guidelines. Does the DRB make up in the PUD guide? Or sign guidelines? I have design guidelines as on my notes, so,
Yeah, same.
okay.
And that's probably going to be further defined in the covenants, the declaration.
Yeah, we talked quite a bit about, I feel like we talked about it being a Colorado licensed architect. And
I think it is in the, we changed it in the
Yeah.
conditions. CC owners.
See. Yeah, that's,
So you're just looking for additional time to review, not necessarily changes to those. Like, I don't need to make those changes, those 2 changes to the PUD guide.
I don't see anybody getting excited about changing the PUD guide.
But I'll have time to read it now.
Yeah, but, yeah, let's leave the door cracked.
And the only, if I may, the only thing on the design guidelines with PUD guide is just to cross-reference them, just to make sure if there's anything that is addressed in both, that they're consistent across both documents.
Right.
And maybe a statement that one rules over the other. We just run into that from time to time if they are in conflict. Just recently, as a matter of fact.
One document to rule them all, is that what you?
Well, it may be the PUD guide, if something in the design guidelines
Yeah.
is different, that the PUD guide.
Okay.
We might have to work with you on that language between the CCNRs, the PUD guide and the design guidance. If you have
Yeah.
experience and you have a recommendation. I'd like to see that hierarchy, that would be great.
And work with them. Yeah.
So since this is one public hearing, but two potential motions, if we're gonna keep part of it open, we're keeping all of it open?
That would be my intent.
Okay.
Yeah, just because we haven't really closed the public comment portion of it and done more discussions than we probably should have, but yeah. Is there, we need a motion to do that? We usually just do it. But
To continue,
please continue.
I would suggest one, Nick.
Yeah, I would just quickly close the public hearing and then take a motion to continue.
Dusty, before we do that, I'd like us to consider one other condition, just so
Okay.
others able to hear this. I think enough time has passed and we've heard a lot of public comments and technological advances. I'd like to consider that we fully electrify the project and eliminate the natural gas. I think if we can have that discussion, there's probably other commissioners here who might have some input on that.
I would respectfully disagree. I mean, I wish I had the opportunity to have natural gas at my house. The bus system is looking at using natural gas buses and, you know, about 30% of our electricity is generated by natural gas and our electric supplier is looking at adding an additional natural gas plant. So I just disagree.
I think having it as a possibility in the infrastructure is important, but as these tracks come online, if the hotel wants to be completely electrified, they can be completely electrified. But I think eliminating all possibility of it has problems, potential problems. So just getting the infrastructure in there and letting market and climate demands dictate if it's used or not.
Sarah.
Well, I'm just saying that could come up as a condition next time we meet.
Yeah, you could.
So you'd ask for, you know, what those conditions might be.
Okay. It would,
You don't necessarily have to close the public hearing if you don't want to, just so.
well, I was not going to because
Yeah.
I would like the public to have the opportunity to weigh in on the comments and questions that we have regarding the design guidelines.
Yep, you don't have to, so you can make a motion to continue and leave that public hearing open.
And so I would so move that we continue this public hearing to March 6th. Do we have a second?
I'll second,
Thanks, Sarah.
and there's gonna be a lot on that agenda.
We do have discussion on the motion. There's gonna be a lot of it.
Homestead design review.
Maybe the design guidelines for sure. I don't know what else. That one's tentative, but I don't, that's very early in that process, but that's the goal. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I was told to schedule.
I'm told to make it a priority.
All right,
Like I said,
But it's not all in our control, is the point that you made there.
so we have a motion, we've discussed it. Is there other discussion on the motion? Leah, can you call the roll and vote on the motion?
Reed,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Sarah,
yes,
Beth.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you all. We'll see you March 6th. And apparently some other people's. Is there any other business?
We just included the, February 20th Community Development, Council report, so you can all see it. And it's the only other business we have.
Okay. And so.
Last night, the council adopt the water. Or landscape.
They
I
did.
did on first reading. Do we,
Will everyone be in attendance on the 6th?
Yes.
It's sick. March 6th. No, I will not. Doctor appointment,
oh,
Denver.
shoot. So, right here. So about the. Please, and Tiffany will.
And they need to listen to the.
Yes,
To participate.
that's what the staff see. They're nodding.
I would definitely, they need us to.
Got here earlier than we thought.
Mhm.
So if anybody wants to go home, do they make a motion to adjourn?
I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
Yes.
Yes. It's unanimous.
All right. Let's see. First track's gonna be better.
Let's keep it. I have everything except the fans.
Have a good night, everyone.